Joining us live is Tasmanian Senator Eric Abetz, who's been very patient through some technical issues this morning. So, Eric, thank you for staying around.
Good morning. Good to be on the program.
Thank you. Now, one of the big issues coming up in the next sitting week of Parliament is this religious discrimination bill. You're quite a supporter of it, but there are still a few issues that need to be negotiated. What are they?
Look, the issues that need to be negotiated are still being negotiated. The Attorney-General has embarked on a very consultative process, which I don't think anybody can fault. The issues have been aired by organisations such as the Australian Association of Christian Schools. I understand some of the clergy in Sydney have indicated their concerns, and these are difficult issues to grapple with to ensure that we get the balance right, and that is what we'll continue to work on, whether it should be in the form of general discrimination legislation, whether things ought to be stated in the positive, in the affirmative, whether the issues ought to be on the basis that religious freedom ought to be seen as a right of itself and therefore only derogated from if absolutely necessary under what is called the Syracuse principles. Others would suggest a different approach. And look, at the end of the day, I'm sure we as a government will come to a landing that is acceptable, that is proportionate, and that will provide the guarantees that were promised to us during the same-sex marriage debate from people such as former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, who himself said that he was more committed to religious freedom than he was to same-sex marriage. It's now for the other side of the debate to be provided with appropriate protections, and that is what Attorney-General Christian Porter is working through.
You're personally, though, supportive of the idea that it should be a positive right and enshrined in legislation.
Look, what my personal view is may be of interest, but at the end of the day, we need to come to a landing which is something that the party room can live with, and I'm acknowledging that there are differing views within the party room. We have kept that discussion within the party room and in consultation with the Attorney-General, and I want to keep it that way.
No, that's fair enough. But just on the broader community concerns around these religious discrimination protections, it's obviously been brought to a head by the Israel Folau saga and the disruption it really caused to his teammates and the hurt that was caused there. Do you think that those concerns are justified, that he would be impacting his fellow teammates with his views?
Well, let's remember there was also hurt on the other side. Somebody had their livelihood taken away from them. Also, a lot of young Pacific Islander community people in Western Sydney in particular saw their hero on the football field being taken off for his religious views. As a result, these young people with the same religious belief are asking, do we have a future in football as well, or in rugby, I should say, if we adhere to the religious values that we believe in? So let's understand that this is not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, and that is why we need to deal with this matter sensitively. But the Australian Human Rights Commission itself has acknowledged that there is a deficit in human rights law in Australia in the area of religious freedom. So that's been well and truly acknowledged. It does need to be dealt with. The issue is that we do so in a sensitive manner, but one that allows a football player or a rugby player to actually indicate what his or her religious beliefs may or may not be without being sent off the field. Excluding somebody in the name of inclusion really does not stand by the values of Australian people, and I think they've spoken very loudly, very clearly, that they believe Izzy Folau should remain on the football field irrespective of his religious views. Rugby Australia has overreacted in a manner that is not in tune with the Australian values and virtues that the vast bulk of Australians adhere to.
Now, one story that's been grabbing headlines has been these Extinction Rebellion protesters going around the country. They've been very creative in how they're causing a bit of distraction, hanging from the Story Bridge in Brisbane, storming front of train stations in Melbourne. They're obviously quite passionate about their convictions, but you don't support their protests.
People can be quite exercised about their views and their particular approach to public policy issues. What they cannot do is disrupt their fellow Australians in going about their normal day-to-day activities. And so whilst they try to call themselves Extinction Rebellion, really they should be called Extreme Rabble, because the way that they display their behaviour is in a manner that I think turns off the vast bulk of Australians. What they're doing, I think, is an injustice to their own cause by the way that they behave. So demonstrate by all means, but do so without inconveniencing your fellow citizens.
Could you not argue that it's quite similar to the Israel Folau case? His very passionately held beliefs disrupted his workplace. Don't they have the right to do the same?
Oh, well, it didn't disrupt Izzy Folau's workplace at all. The simple fact is that he was part of an exceptionally successful team that had been playing exceptionally well. There was certain doyens within Rugby Australia that thought it might be a good idea to boot him out of the place, which has had all sorts of consequences for Rugby Australia and the sport. Now, I believe that people ought to have the capacity to have freedom of expression, such as I say Izzy Folau should have. Similarly, those that want to be believing in Extinction Rebellion, they similarly can put their point of view, but you don't do it by disallowing people from going about their normal commute to and from work, in and out of their office buildings or whatever. You have to behave in a civilised manner, in a civilised society, and this extreme rabble really does the cause of Extinction Rebellion no good whatsoever.